Hey everyone, Jason here, digital marketing consultant, and in this content marketing guide, we are going to go through all 10 steps of my content marketing process, so hopefully you can copy it for yourself to never run out of content ideas and always post your content on time. Okay, well, maybe not that last part, but definitely won't run out of content ideas and maybe be a little more organized so you can post on time. So timestamps below, along with some other helpful videos and resources I'll be referencing, like our content calendar, which you can download, link in the description. So before we jump into the other 9 steps, the first step, and don't worry, I'm only gonna take 30 seconds on this, is to know who your ideal customer is. Because when we're creating content for the sake of driving leads and sales in the future, that's different than creating content for the sake of just creating content because you want brand awareness, attention, or more views and subscribers for some reason. So we want to make sure that we are always thinking about who our ideal customer is and actually creating content that they would find valuable, as opposed to just following some popular trend and getting a bunch of views, getting a bunch of people to read your blog post, but then ultimately no one actually does business with you because you targeted a bunch of people who have no interest in your product or service, even if it's similar to your niche or industry. So I will link up in the cards and the description to a full-blown video on how to come up with your customer avatar, including how to use the Facebook Audience Insights tool, which I recommend you do now because apparently Facebook is going to phase it out around July or August of 2021. So with that out of the way, let's go to the other 9 steps that you probably actually care about. And of course, the first one is going to be creating your content pillars. So these are going to be the 3 to 5 big overarching topics all of your content is going to fall into. Now, there's 2 reasons you want to do this. Number 1, you don't want to post the same video every other day. And this channel is kind of guilty of that sometimes because we have so many Google Ads and Google Tag Manager videos, although I digress. Now, the second reason you want to do this is because you want to also make sure that you don't go too broad with your content and make sure that we stick within our lane in terms of the type of content that we're creating to make sure that we're always focused on our ideal customer. So just as an example, with this particular channel, we have 5 pillars, and that just came out of 5 or 7 days a week. And of course, you can start with 3 and then move up to 5. So our 5 are productivity. Then we have content marketing, similar, which is what this video would fall into. Then we have sales funnels. And finally, we have products and then software reviews. So it will be different for every type of business, and it will be different for your business compared to some of your competitors. So this really is a personal choice. And as you go through keyword research, you'll begin to be able to group all of your different ideas. So if you don't immediately have ideas here, that's okay. When we get into keywords, you'll start to see how you can organize your content across pillars. This is also just going to help with file organization as well. Don't worry, I'm not going to get that OCD on you. So when it comes to the actual types of posts that you should do, there's a lot out there, but there are 3 that are really good for helping push forward the lead generation and sales process. That's going to be how-tos, reviews, and decision guides. So let's start with how-tos. And a great example would be this video. We're going through 10 steps to create your content marketing plan, and of course, make sure that you're posting as often as you can. So when it comes to how-to, we just want to think of where our ideal customer is now, and then a specific result that they're trying to achieve or a big question that they have, and lead them through that process so that they can achieve that result and answer that question and ultimately take action. So what's really important with how-tos is there's some sort of action that your reader, viewer, listener can take at the end of the post. And so that's what differentiates it from a lot of other pieces of content out there that just kind of give them a general hodgepodge of information, and then they don't actually have a process to follow to achieve a specific result. Now, a common objection I get to this type is, yeah, well, if I give all my information away, then they're never going to do business with me. Well, yes, 90% of the people who go through your content, whether it's a podcast, a YouTube video, or a blog post, they're not going to whip out their credit card. They're not going to do business with you, and that's okay because they're not your customers. Your customers will go through that video, they'll go through that podcast or that blog post, and they'll look at it and they go, wow, I am so blown away by the fact that someone actually took the time to explain all this, and they're going to do one of 2 things. They're either going to say, you know what, I don't have time to do this, let me just hire them if you offer a service, or they're going to say, you know what, I think this person can actually be valuable, I want to learn more, and then they go purchase your course or whatever other digital product you have. And so that's going to be that last 5 to 10%. And don't worry about the 90% of people who are just going to take the information and then go try it out themselves. We've had people who've gone and tried it out themselves and then came back and became clients because, well, after they went through our how-to and they tried it out for a while, they actually started to hit some roadblocks that they didn't perceive. And of course, then they needed some expert help. So don't worry about giving too much information away. Now, this next one is going to be reviews. And this is simply where you look at product A and you look at product B and you review them. So as an example, if you're here on YouTube, you see a lot of different camera reviews. So we could review the DJI versus, what is this, the Sony Mark II or something to that effect, and then talk about the pros and cons. Now, we also want to think about who's actually going to be using this equipment. So who's our ideal customer? If I was trying to sell some sort of vlogging mentorship or vlogging membership, which I don't because I'm terrible at vlogging, then I would want to talk about these cameras in the context of vlogging. And I might talk about these these cameras in a different context if I was trying to talk to professionals who would mostly just laugh at these two and talk about their $1,000 camera anyway, right? But I'll get more to on these cameras when we talk about the different gear if you decide to do things on YouTube. So now let's go ahead and talk about the last one, which is going to be a decision guide. And this is simply weighing the pros and cons of going with one solution or going down one path versus another. So as a quick example, we could do the pros and cons of doing content marketing versus going the paid media route, or we could talk about YouTube versus blogs, or YouTube versus podcasts, or podcast versus blogs. So you kind of get the idea there. It's not necessarily product based. It's more of strategic decisions or different paths someone could go down. And it's at this point that it's time to whip out your content calendar and start planning when you're going to post. Now, to answer the age-old question of how much do I post? Well, of course, it depends. Ideally, it's 3 times a week to when you're getting started, whether you're doing podcasting, YouTube, or just writing blog posts. And of course, you can always scale up later. Go ahead and check out the link in the description to our content calendar, or you can go ahead and build your own. So what I recommend doing is choosing a day of the week for each one of your content pillars. And as you can see from our overly complicated internal example here, we actually color code them and make sure that we are rotating content as much as possible. Although just because of popularity, most of our content winds up coming from the sales funnel pillar. Although we are trying to work to diversify our content. Although I digress. So whatever you do, you want to have some sort of calendar ready to go for these next steps, because the next step is going to be figuring out your keywords. And so now hopefully you have an idea of when you're going to post, how often you're going to post. Now it's time to figure out what kinds of topics you should actually, specific topics you should be talking about. So I will go through 2 different examples here, one for blog posts and one for YouTube. So if you're going to be doing anything with blogging and podcasting, this is going to be the place to continue. If you're going to be doing YouTube, go ahead and skip to this timestamp where I go through exactly how to do YouTube research. Spoiler alert, you don't need any fancy plugins or any software. It is a really, really, really arduous manual process, although I digress. So let's go ahead and jump into my screen here. What we're going to be using is Neil Patel's Ubersuggest. And while there are some paid plans here, of course, I recommend just starting for free. We have played with a lot of different tools out there. And of course, Neil, being the expert that he is, created one of the best ones. And the pricing is just ridiculous when you compare it to what you get with some tools out there. So I'm going to go ahead and type in men's watch here, and then I'll click on search. Let's say I'm trying to sell the watch I'm wearing for some reason. So we'll go to our keyword overview. It'll just give us some basic information. And then we can also come down here to keyword ideas. And once we do, these are the keywords that we want to start exploring to create content around. So remember, the entire internet still revolves around keywords when it comes to content marketing. So this would be the list that we would start going through and figuring out, does it make sense to create a blog post or a episode around this particular keyword? I almost said YouTube video, but giving that away. So we can also come down to content ideas, and you can start to see, similar to what BuzzSumo does, if you're familiar with that tool, and actually start to see what other sites are already posting about around this particular keyword. And of course, you can spend hours upon hours on this, but your goal is to essentially fill out your content calendar. So this is a really good way to make sure that you don't spend like 2 or 3 days doing keyword research. I mean, if you're only going to post 3 days a week, then that means you just need 12 or 15 keywords for the coming month or coming 5 weeks, depending upon how you do it. Some months have more than. Anyway, I digress here. And of course, we could get a lot more complicated with your keyword research, but that's not the point right now. The whole point of getting started is to actually start. So you just need 12 to 15 somewhat decent keywords so you can get started with your content creation process. And you know what? You can always create another piece of content in the future going after the exact same keyword. Perfection is the enemy here. We're just planning. So let's go ahead and jump into YouTube now. So when it comes to YouTube, don't use Google Chrome. Don't use any Chromium-based browser when it comes to doing your research, because yes, those tracking things as of right now are still following you even in those private modes. So go ahead and use something like Firefox or Safari, private or incognito, whatever they call it. And then if you're not in the location that you want to rank for, as is the case with me right now, all you need to do is use a VPN and then virtually teleport yourself to wherever you want to rank. So as an example, I'm currently in the Philippines, so I always use a VPN to jump to Los Angeles or Dallas or Seattle, somewhere around there, so that I'm seeing the results there and not where I currently am. So all you need to do is, once you've logged in, you could use TorGuard or ExpressVPN. Those are the two that I really like using. Then you just go over to YouTube and you start typing in your keyword and you look at these suggestions. And if you want to leave a giant thumbs down, that's totally okay. But that is all there is to it, to YouTube research. Skip the plugins, skip the software, and just between you and me, anything that says that they have YouTube search data is lying to you, because Google has never, as of the recording of this video, released that information. Everything is an estimate, or they're just pulling things from the Google search network and telling you it's from YouTube. So when it comes to figuring out search volume or how competitive a keyword is, it is all subjective. So any numbers that you see around this is just someone's best guess or estimate. So you might as well do the work yourself and make the decision yourself as to whether or not you think you can rank for that keyword. And diving back into our keywords here, all you need to do is switch up the way you're searching, and all of those recommendations, those are video ideas for YouTube. I know it seems super basic, but this is the exact process that you want to go through. And when it comes to figuring out, is this keyword too hard to actually rank for, if you see at least 2 or 3 channels that are under 100K subs ranking, then you're probably good to go. If you see everyone has 1 million views on their videos in the top 3 or 5, then you probably want to try a different keyword. And after that, it's totally subjective, because until YouTube or Google releases the search data, we're not really going to know how actually valuable a keyword is. So whether you're doing podcasting or blogging, or you're doing YouTube, you're going to want to jump back into your content calendar and start writing down the keywords the days that you're going to post a piece of content about that particular topic. This also is going to be critical when it comes to content creation, because you never want to sit down and try and come up with an idea and create the content at the same time. Those are 2 different parts of your brain, and it just is never fun staring at a blank page trying to figure out what to do next. So let's go ahead and talk about our hooks. Now, when it comes to hooks, this is going to be your thumbnail text, this is going to be your teaser text, and this is, of course, going to be your headline. So you actually want to figure out what your headline is, approximately what you're going to do for your thumbnail, and then what your first couple of lines of your video or blog post are going to be before you do any writing. So we're not at content creation yet. We're still in planning mode. And the reason that you want to do this is you want to be hyper-focused on getting attention, getting clicks. So you're using a different part of your brain here, and you're thinking of your ideal customer, and you're thinking, what can I say in my headline? How can I hook them into my content? What can I do with my thumbnail? And all of that particular brain processing power, I'm using the wrong sides of our brains, by the way, but all of that brain processing power, you want to put in during your planning, because you don't want that little voice in the back of your head saying, yeah, but how are you going to make a content about that? Well, you know what? You want to ignore that for now and just focus on getting the clicks, getting the attention. And then when you sit down to write, you go, wow, that's a really big promise in my hook or headline. How on earth am I going to actually deliver on that? So there is a lot of different ways you could do this, but I'm going to 90-20. 90-20. That's some good math. So I'm going to 90-10 this process and use something called Conversion.ai. I will link up in the description to it so you can check it out. It is an affiliate link, so if you do decide to purchase it, we receive a small commission as a way to support this channel. But this software, this AI, I'm going to call it AI, not software, this literal AI will write content for you. This will also help with your content creation, because this thing can literally write content, and yes, it gets through Copyscape. It's not fake. So let's go ahead and jump on over. So you can check out conversion.ai, link in the description. I'm just going to go ahead and log in, and I'm going to click on video because I want to come up with a title for our keyword. So we'll go ahead and click on video titles. And you can see here, we use this a lot now for this particular channel. We just did something on Google Drive a few days ago. So all you need to do is paste in, what is the video about? So we're doing a decision guide. So one of the three is a how-to tutorial, decision guide, or review. Then we're men's watch size guide, which is going to be our main keyword that we're ranking for. And then for tone of voice, you can do persuasive, ardent, or helpful. They actually have this really long list of different words that you can use here to kind of change up the tone. Persuasive and ardent and helpful are the three that I found to work the best when it comes to creating this type of content. So all we need to do is click generate. And just like that, we have several different headline ideas. This software literally in a few seconds gave us some headline ideas. Now, obviously not all of them are going to work really well. This is still in the early stages. And as you can see here, some of them, like size doesn't matter, making the right choice for your watch size, that would probably work pretty well because it's a little witty when it comes to blog posts or a podcast. But when it comes to YouTube, you have to remember that YouTube is automatically looking and flagging at different headlines and thumbnails. So you might not want to risk it with your video accidentally being flagged and then going through a manual review. And so we can kind of go down the list. It looks like the first generation was pretty good. Men's watch size guide, 5 best types of watches for all body types, the definitive guide. You could probably copy and paste that and just use that as your title. Of course, you can go ahead and change these. Now, something that I really liked with this one, how to find the perfect watch face for your wrist. That could probably help with our thumbnail and making something about the face of our wrist and the face of our watch. There's some pun in there that I'm not smart enough to come up with. So anyway, what we can do is go ahead and change our tone of voice here, and we'll change it to ardent. And then we'll go ahead and generate again, and you'll see that these are a lot less creative and much more straightforward. And so that's why I like alternating between ardent and persuasive. Again, this is an AI writing all of this from scratch with just the information that we've entered. It's really, really cool. So I highly recommend you check it out in the description. So when it comes to figuring out your titles, this is a tool that you could use. You could also just go to YouTube or Ubersuggest and kind of retool whatever titles you already see. Please do not copy. People will know that you copied, and so does Google, right? So the other thing that we can do here is, well, before we do that, we'll go ahead and paste in our title into our content calendar. So now when we sit down, we have our keyword and our title. Now we want to come up with something called our hook. So our hook is going to be the first couple lines of our blog post, or it's going to be the first couple of things that we say in our YouTube video or podcast. It's essentially getting people to stay and consume the post that we've worked so hard on. So we'll jump back over to conversion.ai, and we'll use something called the PAS framework. And this stands for problem. This stands for problem, agitate, solve. Do you have a problem saying the word problem? Then we have a solution for you. So all you need to do is go ahead and, instead of using company name, go ahead and just drop in you can actually drop in the title that you got from the other tool. So you can see these tools can kind of stack on each other, and then instead of product description, just go ahead and give a brief description of what your blog post is going to be about, or your podcast or YouTube, and then tone of voice persuasive. We'll go ahead and generate, and I'll scroll down a little bit here so we can see all of the results. And what's really cool about this is you can mix and match what this tool spits out. Now, when it comes to how many times you can do this, that just depends upon your plan. The base plan right now starts with anywhere from around 20,000 words. So you can come up with a lot of different brainstorms and ideas. And as you can see here, we could just jump straight into solution and start our blog post with, our guide provides you with everything you need to know about men's watches, including how they fit on your wrist, different styles of watches, and links to buy them at various price points so you can find the perfect timepiece for any budget. Now, the part about buying them, links at various price points, technically it's grammatically correct, but we all know that, at least in the US, you probably wouldn't say it that way, and you might want to change a little bit here. but this is so awesome because in literal seconds, we have a hook to actually get people to continue to consume our post. So of course we can go in here and change the tone of voice. I'm just showing these screenshots so you can go ahead and pause if you're really interested in seeing how this tool works. Again, link in the description if you want to check that out. But this is a crazy, crazy powerful tool. So once you have figured out what your hook is going to be, go ahead and add that to your content calendar as well. So that way, when you sit down, you know the keyword of your post, you know what the title is going to be, and you have the hook. And so that's going to really help with your content frame, which is actually going to be the next part of this process. We finally get to create some content. So go ahead and hit that like button if you're getting some value. There is a terrible example of calls to action because I definitely should have asked for that in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the video, not whatever the timestamp is now. Okay, we're always learning and improving. So let's go ahead and jump into creation. Now this, of course, could be a course in and of itself. There are courses on content creation, just this specific part of it, not even the planning. But something that we do for every single post that we create is we use something called the content frame. So I'll quickly go through this because you've done most of the work already and you probably have a good idea of what your post is going to be about. But just in case, go this little extra step. It literally takes 2 to 3 minutes and it's going to make sure that you're always focused on your ideal customer. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. First, you want to create a big question. And this is coming from the frame of what is this content about? It just says video because we make videos. So what is this content about and what are you trying to help them achieve? So we're thinking about our ideal customer here. So what is their big question? What's the burning question that we are answering with this post? In this particular instance, it's how do I choose the right watch size that is comfortable but still fashionable? And then the desired result, this is going to be the unique selling proposition of your video. By the way, when you use the PAS framework, you're probably going to have that generate the result for you. And this is going to be able to choose the right watch size for me. So that's what they ultimately want. I don't know what size, and I want the best type of watch for me by the end of consuming this post. And finally, we have the question of what is the perceived roadblock? And this is the one that can help differentiate your content post from all the other ones out there. In this particular instance, there are a lot of watch sizes out there, and it's hard to decide what the right size is for me. And that, of course, has to do with the actual face, because everyone knows that you could just change the band, right? But when it comes to the face of the watch, how do you know what size the face of the watch should be based upon the circumference of your wrist or something like that? I'm totally making this up. I bought this for $100 at a department store because my last one broke. So I don't know anything about watches. This is just an example. So when it comes to this particular part of the question, outside of the fact that I don't know what I'm talking about in this instance, it is really important that you look at it from the perspective of your ideal customer, not you as the expert, because they may think they have to solve problem A and you know they have to solve problem C. Well, if they don't even know that this is a problem and you talk about C the whole time, they're not going to know. Think of it this way. You are coming back on a hike and you see a bunch of hikers on the other side of the river and they're trying to figure out how they're going to cross because there's a lot of water there. Water in a river. Go figure, right? And all you say is, oh, you know what? Don't try and use those rocks. Just go up 5 minutes and then you'll be able to cross because upstream there's a log, right? Well, as silly as that example is, that's an example of your customers are looking at a rushing river and they're like, I have to cross right here, right now. And you go, well, you just go like 3 or 4 minutes up the river and there's a log. You just walk across it, right? They have no idea the log exists. That's not because they're dumb. They just don't know it exists. So you have to meet them where they are and guide them to the path that they should take. So that was a really silly example. I don't even know if we're going to keep that, but let's go ahead and move on. So when it comes to actually creating your content, of course, there are a lot of different tools and resources out there. When it comes to blog posts, pretty standard. You're going to be using something like a laptop, and you're probably going to be using Word or Google Drive to type up all of your drafts, post to your blog. Now, when it comes to video, I want to quickly touch on what you actually need to be successful, because it's really easy to overcomplicate the video process. So here is a quick diagram of the different recording setups that you can use. So when we have Quick Start, this is something that I'd recommend if you have the space for it. For $65 off of Amazon, you can get all the lighting that you need. You really only need 2 lights that are on either side of the camera shining into your face. And then if you have a smartphone that you've bought in the past 2 or 3 years, the camera right here is good enough for what you want to do with YouTube. I actually used this phone for the first year and a half or 2 years of this particular channel before I quote unquote upgraded to the camera I'm using now, which is the Lumix G85. It is super confusing. I pretty much never change any of the settings, which is why the lighting in my videos stinks so much, because I just cannot handle changing it. And you know, there's light behind me as well because the sun's going in and out of clouds. And then when it comes to microphones, I recommend getting a Rode Lav mic. This works for 98% of the time that I've been recording. The only reason I use this now is because I'm in a really busy metropolitan area, and this just picked up way too much background noise. But with what you already have with your camera and maybe another $100 on some lighting and then a lav mic, you are good to go. Of course, you can always get more advanced later, but you're also going to find that you just have to get used to being on video as well, which I've done a couple hundred videos now, and I'm still not really used to just sitting here talking all alone by myself to a faceless camera. And when it comes to vlogging, if you're insistent on not using your phone, there are a lot of options out there. I just want to include that I would not recommend using the Sony Mark II. This is a little guy that Sony created specifically for vloggers, but if you're walking around like this, the stabilization is absolutely terrible. So go ahead and check out the DJI and the GoPro. I think DJI is on number 2 right now, and the DJI 2 is currently, I think, the best vlogging one if you want to vlog. And then, of course, there is the Old Faithful, which is the Logitech 1080p webcam. You don't need the 4K one, especially if you don't want your fan to go crazy while you're recording. And this is one that I actually used in the beginning. So I actually started this channel with this, and I know some very big creators who still just use this. You can set this up on a tripod and just record straight to your screen, and it saves you a lot in time and headache when it comes to recording. So hopefully that's enough to kind of get you started, and just let you know that when it comes to the camera, you really should just start with your cell phone. Now, of course, on the very end here, we have the overly expensive Shure microphone that you see pretty much on every other big channel now. And you don't really need that unless you're doing podcasting, because there are plenty of USB microphones that do a good enough job, kind of like this one. Well, hopefully it's good enough. I don't know if this is a good example of audio because I have no idea what it sounds like right now. So let's move on to post. So you've gone through creating all of your content. You can even use Conversion.ai to write out your script or write out your blog post. It pretty much has you covered on the content creation part, which is why we can go through it so quickly. Now it's time to post. So when it comes to what's the best time of day to post, well, of course, it depends. And the days of the week, you're just going to have to figure out through trial and error. Everyone is different. But as a general rule, you want to post your content an hour before most of your ideal viewers or customers are going to be engaging with it. Now, it's not a huge deal with blog posts. It's much more of a big deal with, say, podcasting or a YouTube video like this one. But just start out trying to post around 10:30 or 11 a.m. Or if you think more people are going to not be watching on their lunch break, they're going to be watching when they get home from work, then go ahead and try posting in the evening, 4 or 5 p.m. your time. Of course, you can kind of try and figure out with the different time zones that you are trying to engage with. Now, next part is going to be one of the most important parts of this entire content planning and creation process, and that is going to be actually replying to comments. So whether you have one comment or you have 100, just reply to them all. Number one, you're going to learn a tremendous amount about who's actually watching your content, and hopefully you can start to get feedback on how to improve or get ideas for future posts. And once you start getting the comments rolling in and you start learning about who's actually engaging with your content, then all of a sudden your content ideas are endless, because there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of people engaging with your content, asking questions, and every question is feedback to improve the next post or create a completely new post. And of course, all of those comments do help with building an audience and of course the SEO side of things, where platforms are going to see, oh, people are actually engaging with this particular post. And our second to last step here is going to be the call to action. So you have gone through the entire content planning process. So now it's time for these last 2 steps to actually optimize what we are doing. And somewhere inside of your content post, you're going to want to have a clear call to action of what you want people to do next. And this could be linking to other content. This could be affiliate links. This could be a lead magnet to help grow your email list, or this could be a direct call to action to book a strategy call with you. So if you are a services-based business, you have any sort of service, then go ahead and make that your primary call to action for your first couple of posts, because you just need clients in the door and you need this whole system to start working for you as quickly as possible. Now, for the first three, I've actually done all three in this video. So I will link up in the cards and the description to a full-blown video on how to come up with your customer avatar and use something called conversion.ai. I will link up in the description to it so you can check it out. Go ahead and check out the link in the description to our content calendar, or you can go ahead and build your own. And that's actually all there is to it, to including calls to action inside of your content. So you can see we don't have to get super salesy. We don't have to change our voice. We don't have to do anything fancy. We just mention it and then move on with the content. So the final step in our process is going to be optimizing our content, analytics, and figuring out which pieces of content is actually driving the actions that we want. So the last two calls to action, that being getting a lead magnet to join your email list or jumping on a strategy call with you, you want to know which posts are actually driving the most results that you want, so you can make more of those posts or actually go and put some paid media behind that post. So here's what we want to do. We want to, of course, be using Google Analytics. I'll link up in the cards and the description, another call to action, for a full-blown video on how to set all this up. But I just want to show you the power of UTM links and how you want UTM links on every single post that you make, especially when it comes to lead magnets, growing your email list, or direct calls to action, book a strategy call with you. So let's go ahead and dive in here. So taking a look at this URL, you've probably seen one similar before where there's a bunch of random text on the end of it, and you're like, what on earth is going on here? So if we highlight it and break it down a little bit, you'll actually see that this is information that's being sent over to Google Analytics. So the first part, UTM source, where was the link shared? What type of traffic is it for the medium? Campaign, what campaign is this for? Primary keyword. We're actually going to skip that for now because that's a little advanced. And then what is the specific post or ad? So if we were to jump into our Google Analytics account, we would actually start to be able to see a complete breakdown of the specific post that drove people to your booking page or your landing page to join your email list. So if we hop on over to Google Analytics, there's a lot here. Again, link in the cards and the description to a full-blown video on it. But you can just see from one of our accounts, we can actually filter all of our site traffic to see the exact YouTube video that drove people to our website. So as an example here, you could see add content at the top. We have the campaign is UTM GA Builder, which is one of our landing pages and free offers. And then we can see content M150 drove 57 people there. So if we're seeing that that particular video is driving a lot of traffic to that particular offer, then that gives us a really good understanding of how we can make content in the future to drive more traffic to that offer. Or maybe we want to put some YouTube ads behind this to get even more people watching the video because we know the video already converts. And that right there is where the real power of content marketing comes in, because in the beginning, you don't know which post is going to be driving the results. But once you have this information, you can go all in, really creating great content around that particular topic because you know it converts. So thank you so much for watching. Sincerely hope you got some value out of this video. Most importantly, you're a lot more confident when it comes to setting up your content plan and actually implementing it. So make sure you check out those links in the description to see what Jarvis can do for you writing all of your content, and of course, grabbing a copy of our content calendar. So hit that like button, subscribe for more digital marketing deep dives just like this one, and until the next, keep building the business you love.